And from Capitol Hill, Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. If you could just start by telling us the latest, do you expect to see Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker testifying in front of your committee tomorrow morning? I think it's at 9:30.
We do. There's no reason for Matt Whitaker not to appear. And if he doesn't, then the American people need to ask, what is he hiding? The House Judiciary Committee has bent over backwards working with Matt Whitaker. We gave him the main questions weeks ago. Courtesy. We also negotiate with his office. There's no reason he doesn't show up and testify.
What was the strategy? A senior Justice Department official told me today that he planned to testify when he saw the threat of the subpoena. That's what made him balk. What was behind the strategy of going public with your commitment to using your subpoena power should he not answer the questions you want answered?
Actually, we were trying to give even more courtesy to Matt Whitaker because last term, the Republicans simply subpoenaed multiple witnesses to testify. In this case, we didn't even issue a subpoena. We just authorized issuance of a subpoena. So we were trying to be nice. And this is how the Department of Justice treats us. We're going to recalibrate and make sure with all future witnesses that we're prepared for them to do these delay tactics. We expect Matt Whitaker to appear tomorrow.
I think that's an important point to underscore. You have not subpoenaed him. You're simply prepared to do so if you don't get the evidence and the information, the testimony that you need to answer these important and, as you said, questions you made public weeks ago.
That's correct. And we're not going to subpoena him if he invokes executive privilege. He has a right to invoke privilege. What we don't want to have happen is what happened last term when multiple administration officials would go up in front of committees, not answer the question, and say that at some point in the future, privilege might be invoked, and because of that, we're not going to answer. You can't do that. We're just asking him to make a choice. Either he invokes privilege or he doesn't, but he still has to show up and testify.
I want to ask you, I want to go through some of the questions and ask you, I mean, obviously they're central to the government's ability to get to the bottom of the central question of the Mueller probe, Russia's role in meddling in our 2016 election and whether the president knew about it. But they also seem to leave Matt Whitaker vulnerable to some exposure himself. So with a mind to both those prongs, if I could just go through some of the questions that you have for him. You want to ask him if he had any communication with any White House official, including but not limited to President Trump, about the possibility of his appointment as acting AG. That seems to also get at whether Whitaker obstructed justice, does it not?
It could be read that way, and it depends on how Matt Whitaker answers that question. And if he wants to invoke executive privilege, he has an absolute right to do that. What he can't do is sit there and just not answer that question without invoking the privilege. That was the purpose of the issuance of the authorization for a subpoena today.
And then you also want to ask him if he consulted with the White House about the decision not to recuse himself from the Mueller probe. That, too, depending on how he answers that, it seems to leave him vulnerable to sort of being part of a conspiracy to obstruct justice.
That's correct. If Whitaker did things that were incorrect or inappropriate, the American people have the right to know about it. He supervised the Mueller probe for over 2 months. Whether he testifies tomorrow or he doesn't, we're still going to have him come in and testify. He cannot escape testifying before Congress. We need to find out what happened during these intervening 2 months in which he supervised Special Counsel Mueller's probe, and we will get to the bottom of this.
Do you have a sense, any sort of evidence that you're in possession of, that he communicated these reassurances back to the president or back to the White House about how things would end, either in the Southern District of New York or the Mueller probe?
I personally don't have evidence. That's why we're going to ask these questions. I do know that last week he did on national TV say that he was getting briefings on Special Counsel Mueller's probe, and then he offered a timeline, which I thought was wildly inappropriate. And this was before all the evidence was discovered in Roger Stone's properties. So we want to ask Matt Whitaker about that as well.
He's also had some real hard lines about whether the president can obstruct justice that seem to render him, at a minimum, of any objectivity, but at a maximum, as someone who, if he has been briefed and he has been involved in managing that probe, incapable of objectivity. What are you trying to get at? What sort of answers, what sort of truths are you looking for in your questioning of Matthew Whitaker?
So we need to know if he interfered in Special Counsel Mueller's investigation. We're going to find that out, whether that's tomorrow or whether it's a few weeks from now. He is going to testify in front of the Judiciary Committee. It's only going to be a matter of whether he does it and we're nice to him, or if he does it and we're not nice to him. Because under the way the framers set up the Constitution, we have the absolute right to conduct adequate oversight. In addition, we want to know if he communicated any of the information he's learned from the Special Counsel's investigation directly to the president. We believe that would be inappropriate depending on what he told the president.
Before I let you go, I know you're busy, but let me lob one more your way, because everyone that I talk to around the president really believes that the investigations out of the Southern District of New York could represent the most ominous legal threat to this president. And one of your questions for him is, did President Trump discuss the possibility of firing or reassigning certain personnel who work for the Southern District of New York? What are you seeking in that line of questioning?
We know, based on the pattern of behavior of Donald Trump, that he has fired people in the Department of Justice when they were not in line, in his own view. And he fired FBI Director Comey to basically get rid of the Russia investigation. He said that on national TV. He also threatened to fire Rod Rosenstein and other people. We want to know if he's trying to take any action in the Southern District of New York.
If anything happens in the next 44 minutes, you know where to go to keep us posted. We will keep the shot up for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're grateful, and we hope you get some of your questions answered tomorrow. We're all eager to know the answers.